In a small rustic cabin nestled at the edge of a dense forest, a family huddled together around a roaring fire. The cabin was old, its wooden walls creaking under the weight of the snow that had accumulated on the roof. Inside, the air was warm and filled with the scent of pine and burning wood. The family, a mother, father, and their young daughter Lily, were enjoying a rare moment of peace, away from the hustle and bustle of their usual lives in the city. Lily, a curious and adventurous 6-year-old, with a mop of curly brown hair, sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes fixed on the flames dancing in the fireplace. She loved the snow, loved the way it transformed the world into a magical wonderland. But even she had to admit that the cold was almost too much to bear. Like the video and subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so that you get our new videos daily. "Mommy, can we go outside and build a snowman?" Lily asked, her voice filled with hope. Her mother, a kind woman with a gentle smile, shook her head. "Not today, sweetheart. It's too cold, and the snow is coming down too hard. Maybe tomorrow, if it lets up." Lily pouted but didn't argue. She knew better than to push her luck. Instead, she turned her attention to the window, where the snow was falling so heavily that it was almost impossible to see the forest beyond. As she stared out into the white abyss, something caught her eye. At first, she thought it was just a trick of the light, a shadow cast by the trees. But as she squinted, she realized that there was something out there, something moving. "Mommy, Daddy, look!" Lily exclaimed, pointing at the window. "There's something outside." Her parents exchanged a glance, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Her father, a tall man with a rugged beard, stood up and walked over to the window, peering out into the storm. "I don't see anything, Lily," he said after a moment. "It's probably just the wind." But Lily wasn't convinced. She jumped to her feet and pressed her nose against the glass, her breath fogging up the window. "No, Daddy, I saw something. It's out there, I know it." Her father sighed and reached for his coat. "All right, I'll go take a look, but you stay inside, understand?" Lily nodded eagerly, her eyes wide with excitement. Her father pulled on his boots and grabbed a flashlight before stepping out into the storm. The door closed behind him with a soft thud, and Lily watched as his figure disappeared into the swirling snow. Minutes passed, and Lily grew more and more anxious. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Her mother tried to distract her with a story, but Lily's attention remained fixed on the window. Finally, the door burst open, and her father stumbled back inside, his face pale and his eyes wide with shock. "What is it?" her mother asked, her voice trembling. There's 3 German Shepherd puppies out there," he said, his breath coming in short gasps. "They're half frozen, just lying in the snow. I don't know how long they've been out there, but they're in bad shape." Lily's heart leapt into her throat. Without thinking, she darted past her father and out into the storm, ignoring her mother's cries for her to come back. The cold hit her like a wall, stealing her breath and making her eyes water. But she didn't care. All she could think about were those puppies, alone and freezing in the snow. She followed her father's footprints, the snow crunching beneath her boots. The wind whipped around her, tugging at her coat and stinging her cheeks. But she pressed on, driven by a determination that belied her young age. Finally, she saw them 3 small, shivering bundles of fur huddled together in the snow. Their coats were matted with ice, and their eyes were half closed, as if they were on the verge of giving up. Lily's heart broke at the sight. She dropped to her knees beside them, her hands trembling as she reached out to touch the closest puppy. Its fur was cold and stiff, and it didn't respond to her touch. "Don't worry," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "I'll save you." She shrugged off her coat and wrapped it around the puppies, trying to shield them from the cold. Then, with all the strength she could muster, she scooped them up into her arms and began the arduous journey back to the cabin. The wind howled in her ears, and the snow stung her face, but Lily didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Not when the lives of these innocent creatures depended on her. By the time she reached the cabin, her arms were numb, and her legs felt like they were made of lead. Her parents rushed to her side, their faces filled with a mixture of relief and worry. "Lily, what were you thinking?" her mother scolded, but there was no real anger in her voice. Instead, there was pride in her daughter's bravery and compassion. Her father took the puppies from her arms and carried them over to the fire, where he began to gently rub their frozen bodies with a warm towel. Lily watched anxiously, her heart pounding in her chest. "Are they going to be okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. Her father didn't answer right away. He worked in silence, his hands moving with a practiced ease. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, one of the puppies let out a weak whimper and opened its eyes. Lily let out a cry of joy and dropped to her knees beside the puppy, tears streaming down her face. "You're okay," she exclaimed, stroking its head gently. "You're okay." One by one, the other puppies began to stir, their tiny bodies trembling as they slowly warmed up. Lily's parents worked together to dry them off and wrap them in blankets, their movements quick and efficient. As the puppies began to recover, Lily's father turned to her, his expression serious. "Lily, what you did was incredibly brave, but it was also very dangerous. You could have gotten lost or hurt out there. Promise me you'll never do something like that again without telling us first." Lily nodded, her eyes still fixed on the puppies. "I promise, Daddy. I couldn't let them die." Her father's expression softened, and he pulled her into a tight hug. "I know, sweetheart, and I'm proud of you. But next time, let us help, okay?" Lily nodded again, her heart swelling with love for her father. She knew he was right, but she also knew that she would do it all over again if she had to. Those puppies needed her, and she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. As the storm raged on outside, the family huddled together around the fire, the puppies nestled safely in their arms. It was a moment of peace and warmth, a stark contrast to the cold and chaos that had just unfolded. But even as they sat there, safe and sound, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Where had the puppies come from? How had they ended up alone in the snow? And why had they been left to fend for themselves? These questions swirled in her mind, but for now, she pushed them aside. The important thing was that the puppies were safe, and that was all that mattered. As the night wore on, the storm began to subside, the snow falling more gently, and the wind dying down. The puppies, now warm and dry, curled up together in a pile of blankets, their tiny bodies rising and falling with each breath. Lily watched them sleep, a smile playing on her lips. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: she would do whatever it took to protect these puppies, no matter what. And as she drifted off to sleep, her head resting on her father's shoulder, she dreamed of a world where no creature was ever left out in the cold. The next morning, the sun rose over a world transformed by the storm. The snow sparkled like diamonds in the early morning light, and the air was crisp and clean. Lily woke up early, her heart racing with excitement. She couldn't wait to see the puppies, to make sure they were okay. She crept downstairs, her footsteps soft on the wooden floor. The fire had died down to embers, but the cabin was still warm. The puppies were right where she had left them, curled up together in their blankets. As she approached, one of the puppies lifted its head and let out a soft bark. The others stirred, their tails wagging as they caught sight of her. Lily's heart melted at the sight. She dropped to her knees and reached out to pet them, her fingers sinking into their soft fur. "You're all so beautiful," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "I'm so glad you're okay." The puppies nuzzled against her, their tiny bodies warm and full of life. Lily felt a surge of love for them, a love that was fierce and unyielding. Her parents joined her a few moments later, their faces filled with smiles, as they watched her interact with the puppies. "What are we going to do with them?" Lily asked, looking up at her parents. Her father knelt down beside her, his expression thoughtful. "Well, we can't just let them go. They're too young to survive on their own. We'll have to take care of them until we can find them a good home." Lily's heart leapt at the thought. She had always wanted a dog, but her parents had always said they were too busy to take care of one. But now, with these puppies, maybe they would change their minds. "Can we keep them?" she asked, her voice filled with hope. Her parents exchanged a glance, and for a moment, Lily's heart sank. But then her mother smiled and nodded. "I think we can manage 3 puppies," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "But it's going to be a lot of work, Lily. Are you ready for that?" Lily nodded eagerly, her eyes shining with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes, Mommy. I promise." Her father ruffled her hair, a proud smile on his face. "That's my girl." And so, the family began their new life with the puppies. They named them Max, Bella, and Rocky, and each day brought new adventures and challenges. Lily took her responsibilities seriously, helping to feed and care for the puppies with a dedication that impressed her parents. She spent hours playing with them in the snow, teaching them tricks and cuddling with them by the fire. As the weeks passed, the puppies grew stronger and more confident, their playful personalities shining through. They became an integral part of the family, bringing joy and laughter to their lives. But even as they settled into their new routine, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. She often found herself staring out the window, her mind wandering to the day she had found the puppies in the snow. One evening, as the family sat around the fire, Lily finally voiced her thoughts. "Mommy, Daddy, where do you think the puppies came from?" she asked, her voice soft. Her parents exchanged a glance, their expressions thoughtful. "It's hard to say," her father said after a moment. "They could have been abandoned, or maybe they got lost in the storm. But one thing's for sure, they're lucky you found them when you did." Lily nodded, her heart heavy with the thought of what might have happened if she hadn't been there. But she also felt a sense of pride, knowing that she had made a difference in their lives. As she looked at the puppies, now healthy and happy, she knew that she would do it all over again if she had to. They were her family now, and she would do whatever it took to protect them. And as the fire crackled and the snow fell softly outside, Lily felt a sense of peace settle over her. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: she would always be there for Max, Bella, and Rocky, no matter what.